Okay, hello everyone. So while we're waiting to get started, as you're joining, you should see that there's a chat over on the right-hand side, I think, for you. Just tell us a little message, say who you are and where you're coming from, and we'll just make sure everything's working. Hey, Gilbert from Raleigh in North Carolina.
Oh, there's loads of them.
Sid here from Singapore. Dan from Charlotte.
Denmark. Tommy from Croatia. They're all over the world. Wow. Oh, someone's in Cornwall. Is it sunny today?
Marco from Switzerland. Leslie Brooks from...
Hello, Leslie.
Fabio from Lisbon in Portugal. Always sunny in Cornwall, Richard says. Is there any swell? That's the big question in Cornwall, isn't it? Okay, great. Well, so it seems like people are starting to join and everything's working. I'm really sorry if I missed if I missed anyone from the list there. Vanita in Detroit. Thanks so much for joining. So today, this webinar is all about Cucumber Pro, which is the product we've been building to support teams using Cucumber. I'm going to hand over in a moment to Matt Wynne, our CEO. But just before we get started, I'm going to launch a poll on the roll just to get an idea of the types of people who are in the room. So hopefully you'll see that pop up and you should be able to start voting. See who's coming up. So we'll do that for the first couple of minutes while you're going, Matt. Okay. But now I'd like to hand over now to Matt Wynne, the CEO of Cucumber Limited, to tell you a little bit more about Cucumber Pro.
Right. So, and I've never done one of these webinars before. What do we call them? They're not listeners, are they? What are they?
Our attendees.
Viewers.
Viewers. I've just realised one thing I forgot to say is if you have any questions while we're going, there is a Q&A functionality. If you ask the questions in that Q&A system, then I can see which ones we've answered and which ones we haven't.
Do you want to test that out, Steve, before we get started? Somebody throw me a nice easy one in the Q&A bit. Oh, there's one.
Gilbert, test. Answer live.
What is your quest? How do I have such a great beard? I'll tell you, wifely approval. It's as simple as that. So my wife really likes the beard and she positively encourages it. That's the secret.
What is our quest, though? That is such a good question.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you about our mission in a minute. Is that maybe that'll give you a clue? So, yes, I've never done a webinar before with Zoom. I'll be honest with you, viewers. So I may bungle something, but I'm going to do my best. And you'll probably see me scratching my head working out what button to press. And I better turn that Slack notification off. Let's put that on Do Not Disturb. Right. So I'm going to share my screen. This one. And I'm going to play a presentation. And I did have buried in a window somewhere some presenter notes. What happened to them? Let's get them back. Come back, presenter notes. You go full screen. And then I think we're about ready to start. May I start, Steve?
Please do.
Okay. So I'm going to close the Q&A window because I haven't got enough space on my screen to be able to see it all. So I'm going to leave you to ask me the questions with your voice.
I will.
Okay. So, yes, I'm Matt. It's August 2018 and we're here to talk about Cucumber Pro. If you're not here to listen about Cucumber Pro, now would be a good time to go and do something else. I'm going to tell you about who we are as a company, as a team, why we're building Cucumber Pro, what it does. I'm going to show you what it does, not just tell you, and finally how you can get involved. So this is me. I've been programming computers for money since 1997, actually for fun a lot longer than that. I was lucky enough to get a computer in my household when I was about 11, and I started fiddling with it right away. what a privilege that was. I came across test-driven development in the early 2000s and tinkered about with it, but I've been full-on test-driven since about 2008. Published a Cucumber book in 2011. We started a company around the Cucumber project, the open source project, in 2013. And a couple of years ago, a summer meetup, we decided we needed a CEO, and we had a vote, and they picked me. So that's why you have to listen to me now. Our mission as an organization is this one. We're all about collaboration. The reason that we got into this open source project, it wasn't because we thought it was a great way to make money. It was because all of us care about this problem of communication, bridging the communication gap between business people who have problems and technical people who have skills to solve those problems. And we like making that collaboration happen. And that's what we're here to do. So this is our mission. And how we do that really is about tools and techniques. Tools and techniques. So we have tools like Cucumber, which is free. We have techniques like BDD and example mapping, which we go out and teach people about. And the purpose of doing that work is all about making your teams great. We have been part of great teams. We have seen great teams, and we have witnessed teams transition from, average to great. And that's really what we get a kick out of doing. And so there's three ways we do that. There's the open source, which is a great piece of kit. It's a very popular tool, really good tool for validating the behavior of your application. We offer this transformational coaching, as we call it. There are training courses. There's involvement of people on the ground at your company, meeting your people, teaching them new skills, working with them to help them see things differently and elevate their performance. And then there's this other thing that we've been building. So what we found is that the teams who are trying to grasp BDD, trying to really make BDD happen, they're using Cucumber, they're learning these skills. What they're missing is something that helps them to collaborate and keep the product owners, the business analysts, the non-technical people, the people who can't access source control, to keep them involved in the project all the way through, keep them involved in the process. So that's the thing we're going to focus on today. That's why you're here, but that's the wider context around it. So why did we build this thing? Well, it goes back to documentation. When I first started in software, we always used to have a requirement specification document or a business requirements document. Usually the sort of thing that was of a size that you could, stun a small animal with it. And those documents were somewhat valuable in that the people who wrote them, or usually it was just one or two individuals really that would write those documents, they would have to really think about what was this system going to do? What was it going to need to do? So you would have one person who really was thinking through what was the system going to do? What was it going to need to do? And unfortunately, the document wasn't a very good way of getting that knowledge out of other people's heads, out into other people's heads, into the heads of all of the other people who were going to need to be involved in building the project. So we know where that ended up. But as we moved to Agile, we kind of maybe threw the baby out with the bathwater a little bit. So what we're seeing is that there is still a need for documentation of some form in software projects. It's just what we don't want to do is spend 6 months trying to write it all down in one fat document at the beginning of the project. But we are missing something when we throw away documentation in its entirety. So here's a couple of questions I've got for you really about how your teams are not using documentation at the moment. So one of those problems that I said was solved by the old requirements documents is, how do you decide what you're going to build? How do your teams currently decide precisely what they're going to build? How well is that working for you at the moment? What problems do your teams have deciding what to build? Do you feel that you waste time, waste energy, waste effort at that point of deciding what to build? There's sometimes people go, and even though you're maybe you're picking up these techniques like example mapping, and you're trying to use tools like Cucumber. Even then, maybe you're struggling sometimes to facilitate that communication effectively between the people who want the stuff and the people who are going to build the stuff. Do you have problems deciding precisely what to build? And then once you've built it and you're building more and more and more of this software, how do you keep track of what it actually does? And this is often one of the reasons why people really wanted these requirements documents or specification documents, because they weren't going to be around forever. They knew they weren't going to be around forever, but the software, you know, some organizations, maybe your organization, is still running code that was written in the 70s or 80s. And there's probably very few people around now who were around when that code was written and certainly can't remember how exactly it works. And if we want to go and make changes to software, it's really important to be able to understand what's its current behavior. So there's these two problems that we see that really the current tools aren't solving very well. So this really sums it up, right? It's like, where's the truth? Where do your people go to find out the truth of what the system does? So this is what we want to give you. It's this single source of truth. And there's just three parts to that, really. So a way to build requirements, describe requirements collaboratively. Remember that effective, meaningful, effective collaboration. Be able to find the test scenarios, know what's being tested, and be able to see the test results and bring those three things together into a single place. So you're no longer chasing around between, you know, CI servers to look for your test results, Excel files to look for your test scenarios, and Jira tickets to find out what your requirements were. You've got everything in one place. Right. So that's the pitch. That's the dream. Let's show you the reality right now. So this is the scary bit for me, right? Because now I've got to try and make software do what I want it to do with all of you watching. And this is the bit where I get nervous. So Steve, you need to turn your microphone off on now and tell them some jokes so I'm not so nervous. I'm going to close my...
Wow.
I'm going to exit my browser thing and I'm going to bring up Cucumber Pro. I'm actually going to get that one out of the way. And I'm going to bring up my terminal as well. So what I'm going to show you is a typical Cucumber behavior-driven project. And I'm going to have a look at it as a developer would, just for a minute. We've got to wait for WebStorm to wake up. Just tidy up my windows while I do that.
If I was telling a joke now, it would probably be something about Vim.
Okay, so here's our project, and it has a features directory. And in this features directory, we can see the feature files, right? That the developers have diligently recorded from the conversations they've had with their product owner. They've written them up as scenarios that can be tested. And here they are in source control in our project, visible in our IDE. So why do we need a tool like Cucumber Pro? Well, because the IDE and the source control is not a friendly environment for someone non-technical. I learned this back in 2009 when I tried to get Brooke, who was our business analyst at Songkick, to use Git and TextMate. She was really keen on BDD and she really wanted to be able to edit the feature files. And she really just couldn't get on with those tools. So we want a way to get these things back in the hands of the business analysts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this project. And with a bit of luck, We should see it appear in the browser. Yay. Step 1 complete. Okay. So we've seen the documentation appear here now in the browser. Let's get this out of the way. But actually, no, I'll leave it there for a minute. So I've now what I've got is a nice home page, which is rendered up from this file here in the features directory, which is just written using a markdown syntax. And so that forms the home page of the documentation. And if I go down here, we can see the exact same feature file that we just looked at, just rendered up now as something that feels much more like a normal document. And we can browse around the whole project. We can see all of the documents that are in here. And we can search. I can even make a typo.
Dad. Brilliant.
Dad, that's what they call me. That's what my kids call me. Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So we've mirrored what we see in the features directory is now looking like, the directories here, which are our kind of capabilities. They're sections for the documentation. And we can come in here and have a look at any of the documents that we want to. And what you'll notice as well is that as I'm wandering around here, we get this little speech bubble popping up as I hover over the scenarios. And that's there because we want to be able to get feedback on these scenarios, right? So one of the most important things, one of those the big problems that we talked about, the big 2 problems is deciding precisely what to build. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that the act of trying to write these scenarios, trying to describe clearly enough that Cucumber can go off and test them, is a really useful process in trying to help you decide precisely what to build. But you don't get it right first time. So closing that feedback loop by getting people to read them and tell you what they think is really important. So my product owner, Paula, is here in another browser. Here she is. So let's have a wander in to this same document with Paula. And let's get Paula's feedback. Given Dave is reading document MD in test project and Dave is reading document MD in test project and Dave comments on document MD line 3. Ooh, that looks a bit technical. What does this mean? Right, and we can actually see, oh wow, look, it pops up straight away. I can reply, yup. Would it be better to say on the 3rd line? Okay, so we can actually see there's a real-time conversation can happen about the scenario in context right where the scenario is published. And if I want to send somebody a link to ask them for their feedback, each of these scenarios has a permalink. So the particular branch that we happen to be in now is in the URL. And if I grab that anchor link there, we've got a permalink taking me right down to that one particular scenario. So it's very easy for me to share that and send it around the team and ask for feedback. The other thing that we've found people wanting to know about. Oh, wait. Shall I show them test results, Steve? Shall I do that first?
Well, just before we move on from comments, Matt, we've got a question from Chris to Matteo.
Oh, excellent.
And he says, how far back in time can I view comments?
Right. So this is where we get into the growth of Cucumber Pro and how it's evolving currently as a product. So right now, what happens is if we've made an agreement, so let's say Paula says, yes, please, and resolves the conversation, it's going to disappear out of this feature file. Now, that doesn't mean it's disappeared out of our database. And actually, one of the things we've got on our queue to do is to resurface those conversations that have been archived. So it's possible for you to see any of the conversations that have ever happened about a document. But right now, once a conversation's been resolved, it disappears from the UI, but that doesn't mean it can't come back in the future once we add that feature, because it's still there in the database. Any other questions about conversations while we're on them?
So Tomislav says, shouldn't Paula facilitate during making of feature files together with a developer? If yes, then she would see this mark for third line :3. So if she was involved in it, she'd
yeah. So should's a funny word, isn't it? I think in an ideal world, we would all work together on everything, and we would have product owners who could write code, and everybody would be involved in every decision. What I see in reality is that often product owners are very busy people. And actually, the best use of their time can be for you to have a structured conversation with them using a technique like example mapping to take away what you've learned from that conversation, express it as Gherkin, almost like writing the minutes of the meeting, right, as a feature file, and then feed that back to that busy person and say, that conversation that we just had, this is what I heard, and this is what I intend to build. What do you think? So that's a process that we have seen work very well. Now, on the early days of a project or the early days of a team, when a team is very new to their domain, I think it's an excellent idea to have that feedback happen very, very rapidly by having everybody in the same room, so that you start to come to an understanding about idiomatically, generally, how do we like to describe things? Is this the way we like to describe things or not? Because if you're having that feedback be slower in the early days, it can be quite painful. But I've also seen that once a team have got to know their domain and they're quite confident in how they like to express it in general in feature files, it can actually be quite boring for a product owner to be around while they're going through the details of exactly expressing it all as given when then. And it's a good test of the team's understanding to allow the team to try to express it for themselves. It's a very good test. You'll find yourself, if you ever try to explain a concept to somebody else, especially if you try and explain it in writing, it very strongly tests your own understanding of something. So allow the team to express it and then get feedback. But yeah, you're right. If they could all sit in the room together, then you would never need that feature.
And then we've also had a couple of questions, Matt, about notifications.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any email or SMS available when a comment's added?
Yeah, we ring your house. No. Yes. So the way the notifications work at the moment is all the team, all the collaborators on the project would receive an email for the first comment, and subsequent comments in that thread would only be emailed out to anyone who has participated in the thread. So there is an email thread that comes out. I actually can't show you because my test environment doesn't send emails. But that's the way that they work, because what we found is that teams who are sort of like 10 or 15 people, maybe some of them are interested in some areas of the features and not others. So if there's a conversation going on, you don't necessarily want to have all of the noise in your inbox of about two people talking about one particular detail. So yeah, you'll get notified about the first comment, and then everything else just only if you're involved in the thread. And right now it's just email notifications. We'd love to add things like Slack as well, just as and when they seem like top priority for us. It's so weird answering a question, not being able to see someone like nodding or knowing whether it's resonated with them.
So we've had a couple of questions about making changes to the files. I'm just wondering if you want me to hold those for the moment, or do you want to move on for a second and then we'll come back to those?
Well, actually, so I'd like to show test results, and then we can probably make changes to the files and break them.
Yeah.
If that's all right. So what I might do is just minimize Paula's browser for a minute. No, I'll just move mine over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the tests. Is this my terminal? This is my terminal. No, that's not my terminal. This is my terminal. See, I told you I was a bungling fool, viewers. Right, here we go. So if I run the tests, what's going to happen is my build script here. So normally you'd have this plugged into your CI environment. So we've got plugins for SpecFlow, Cucumber JVM, and then Cucumber JS and Cucumber Ruby and the other ones. basically we take the JSON output. You can see it being spat out here. And then we just run a little script to post it up to the server. And is it going to appear? No,
you haven't posted it to the server.
I think I have, because it's in that script.
Ah, okay.
And I don't know why it's not working. This is what I hate about doing demos. Why aren't the test results? Oh, because I'm in the demo branch. No. Oh, please, computer. Maybe you're right. Let's try it. Publish test results, and it goes results.json default demo. Oh, there we go. Okay, you were probably right. It probably wasn't. I thought I'd put it into that build script, but I must have messed it up. So yeah, normally that would be happening in your CI. So just as soon as you push part of running the test, as Cucumber runs the test, basically, it's going to send the results up to Pro as well. So these would be here immediately, basically. And if you're running several runs of your build, so like, for example, we run ours through the UI as well. So I can run our slightly slower acceptance tests. Oops, JSON. These will do the Selenium ones. And we can push those up and you see them as a separate bar.
So while that's going, Matt, I have a question from Richard. Are all the scenarios automated? Could some be manually testable only?
Yeah, this is a great one. So it's not possible right now to post manual results into Cucumber Pro, not yet. However, we're very much ready for that. So the architecture we've built around recording test results is really open for recording other kinds of test results, including manual ones, because we know that's something people are going to want to be able to do. What we do have already is a facility for you to post arbitrary types of results. So the bar here can also display, for example, if you have JUnit tests that you want to have displayed for comfort for people, they can be included as kind of part of your result set. And we'll see a little bit more when we come to doing sign off, how that can be important. But at the moment, manual tests can't be included. No, manual test results can't be included, but that's a really good one. Nice to hear that that's something you'd be interested in.
Yeah, and Kieran's asking, is results.json under version control and being pushed alongside my changes to feature and code?
No. So this is what I'm showing you here with the results JSON file is really something that would be invisible to you because it'd be in your CI build script. This is a kind of like rough part of my demo. I probably need to smoothen this out so you don't need to see it. So normally what would happen is you'd push your code, your CI script, Jenkins or Bamboo or whatever, runs your tests, and as those tests run, Cucumber, which is configured with the location of your Cucumber Pro server, is just transmitting the results through to Pro.
You can almost think of it as Git is the API for getting the documentation into Cucumber Pro, and then there's another API for getting the test results to Cucumber Pro, which is an HTTP API.
So I'm just going to run one of the features in that mode because it's too slow.
Gilbert's asking, do pending results show up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could probably show you that one in a minute. Let me just post these ones up. So if I do send this as UI, and what does it say? Results UI. So I need to refresh that, right? Oh, it didn't work, Tucky, look. So I've written them as, treating them as two separate runs. Oh, because it's manually configured. Oh, terrible demo. Terrible demo. I'll show you how this works on a different project. So if I go into our one in production, because I just want to show you the thing. here. So what you have is a bar that breaks down across the different test runs that you may have done in different environments, but they're all they're grouped together because they were running the same CI build, which is what I didn't manage to fake in my terminal environment there. So they're grouped together because they're running the same CI build. They're all running the same revision, and you can see the total number of tests, but across the different types of runs. So we run some with a fake database, some directly against Bitbucket, and some through the UI. There we go. That was all I wanted to show you about that. Steve, tell me what to do next. Shall I take them through the release history stuff? Or there was something about changing...
seeing a pending result.
Seeing a pending result. Okay. So if I took one of these features... so what was I doing? I was just doing the LDAP ones. So if we look at authentication, LDAP authentication, given this appliance is configured for LDAP authentication, so let's go to step definitions, authenticator steps. Let's make that one pending. Is that just this? Can you remember how you do it? How do you make one pending? I'll just delete it and then it'll tell me. So this actually will be, what would you call this? Undefined. Should be using the fast one now. That would have been wiser, wouldn't it? Come on, Selenium.
So these are all undefined or effectively pending now.
Yeah. There we go. So we've got three undefined scenarios because none of them are running because we undefined that step. So basically what you see, so it'd be better actually if I run a few more now, if I run the whole set. Yeah, what you see is a breakdown in the bar of how many of the different statuses. How are we doing for time? So 35 minutes past. The main other thing I want to show, Steve, is the release history. Let's just push those results up so we can see them. Yeah, so that's a bit more representative. So you can see now how it breaks the bar down depending on the status. And obviously, if we had some that had failed, then we'd have a red patch in that bar as well. Are there any other burning questions about results?
I think there are. So there's a couple of questions like, will Pro be able to send notifications on failures? And about metadata in the JSON report.
Metadata,
so I guess some of the people's JSON report might have the browser or browser version. I'm not sure what metadata we have in our.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, I think it's fair to say that there's an awful lot more we can do with test results right now. We're still really looking for feedback from people about what's the kind of next priority. I'm going to talk a bit later about some of the ideas we've got in that realm as well. So I think I'd like to probably just save some more of the questions about tests for later. Yeah. Let me show you what happens when we change things. So I'm just going to stick with this LDAP one just for the sake of it. If I take this feature and I change something about it, let's say we go in here and we say, and today is sunny, and I check this in. Oh yeah, because I changed the. Well, so actually, what I want to show you is, let's suppose we do a release first. So let's take the version of the docs that I've just amended, and let's say we're happy with having a couple of these scenarios be undefined, and we want to make a release. And so what we've seen is that as these documents are evolving over time, and so that this is really sweet thing about Cucumber and about way Cucumber Pro works is that everything's coupled to your source control. So whichever type of source control you're using, you're able to, well, as long as it's Git, you're able to synchronize immediately with changes in source control. Those changes are immediately reflected in Pro. So that's wonderful because it means that it's very easy for people to access up-to-date documentation that they can trust. They can see the test results are there. But it's always changing. And of course, the version that you're working on development is not necessarily the same version that's in production. And as production changes over time, it can be important to sort of lift certain versions of the documentation and the test results out of this stream of development activity that's going on and promote them and make them special. So we created this releases feature, which allows you to do that. So if I create a release now, let's just call it version 1.0. And we see that appear in this history page here. And so at the moment, we've just got one release in our history page. So all of the documents that are in this project are all counted as added, right? Because everything is new for release 1.0. But suppose I come in here and I change my LDAP authentication feature back and correct it so that it actually works. And maybe we'll add something else in here as well. Let's push those up. So if I'm looking at the docs now, I'm looking at this latest version with that last commit in it, and I'll create another release. And let's say this is 1.1. You can now see a summary of the changes between release 1.0 and release 1.1. We can see that there was this brand new feature was added, the demo feature. And you can see that this feature here has been modified. And any of the changes that are made in the documentation between the two releases are listed out here. And so what this does is it gives you two things. One, it gives you a sort of historical view of what is different, what is new about each of your releases. But it also gives you an easy way for somebody to come in and review the changes. So some of our customers need to get, and this may be your context as well, need to get sign-off, they need to get approval for their requirements, for the test results, for the test scenarios, for releases. And this feature allows you to do that. So if I'm Paula and somebody comes to me and says, hey, can you just go and really and approve release 1.0, or let's say we wanted to approve 1.1 because 1.0 has got quite a lot in it, isn't it? So let's switch to Paula's browser. Paula follows the link in her email. Paula comes in here. She can easily see Matt created the release. Yep, well, it was Matt that just sent me the email. That was nice. There's two changes. Okay, I'm going to have a look at this new one. Yeah, that looks fine. LDAP, what have they been doing to LDAP? Oh, yep, okay, that looks good. Right, I'm happy with that. I'm going to approve it. And we've now got that audit trail that somebody has approved that release. So this is one of the kind of key things that we're trying to do here really with this dream of having living documentation, right? It's having documentation that's reflected right out of your source control, and we're trying to put it back into the hands of the people who, you know, kind of need to have access to that documentation. So you can use these releases for auditing. You can send them out to auditors and say, like, here is the complete set of documentation at that version 1.1, and you can read right through it and find everything about what the system does. and how well it was tested. Okay, that's all I've got for demo. Shall I go back to the deck and just summarize? And then we can take some questions, I think, in context.
Okay.
So, because the next slide I've got, oh, this works. All right, yeah. So the problems that we reckon we're solving for you right now are, I want to share my feature files so our BA or product owner can easily read them. I want to get feedback from our BA or product owner about our scenarios. I want to know at a glance whether the scenarios I'm reading have been tested. I want to get sign off on the requirements and tests for a release. And I want to keep everything behind my firewall. So one of the things I haven't mentioned so far in the demo is that we're providing Pro in two different ways. So it runs as a hosted service, as a SaaS in the cloud with private projects. You can sign up a bit like GitHub. You can sign up and you can get private projects and publish your features that way if you're comfortable with that. But we know lots of people really don't want their specification documents coming outside their firewall. So we've also built it as an appliance, which you can download and install very easily inside your firewall, and we can easily deploy updates to that as well. So that's kind of an additional feature. So that's a summary of what we're doing right now. I'm also going to talk a little bit. I've just got a few more minutes of stuff about what else we'd like it to do, and then how you can get involved. So shall I take some more questions? Steve, you can see the questions. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of questions about the history that might be worth talking about.
Okay.
Right now. So there's a couple of questions people asking, can Cucumber Pro highlight the changes in the documents? So adding color, that kind of thing.
Yeah, not yet, but we would love to get to that. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, and Nanand has asked, is it possible to rebase the history thread? So I guess that means if you insert, I'm assuming that means to insert a release earlier on in the history.
Yeah, so that works perfectly, actually. As long as you can, if you go back to the Git revision, which you can do by adding a tag. One of the things I didn't show you. Now I need to switch browsers, and it's gone full screen. Where is it? Is it this one? Nope, that's something completely different. One of the things I didn't show you is in here, we have a drop down that allows you to switch between different Git branches if you have them, or Git tags. So you can go back to an old branch or tag, create a release off of that branch or tag, and it'll be inserted into this history depending on how old it is, like how old the commit at the head of that branch or tag is. So it's possible to kind of retrospectively create these releases, yes, and it works out what the changes are between them. It shows them in a linear way.
Okay, so just a clarification, Nanan said he meant so that after a while you don't have to compare additions and removals for several releases. So I guess that's not something we do yet, but I guess that would mean that you could then maybe just say which two releases you want to compare against. So if you want to look at what's the difference between 2.0 and 1.0 is, you don't need to look at...
Oh, cool, right. You wouldn't have to go incrementally through all the 1.1s. Yeah. Well, I mean, it'd be easy for us to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
We don't yet, but that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Idea, yeah.
And so Kim has asked, can you make changes after an approval, and does the approval get removed?
Right. So the way it works is the approval is of a particular Git revision, okay, a Git commit. So you can't change what's in a Git commit. All you can do is delete the release and create another release on a different commit. So the documentation can't change. And we at the moment have a little bug to fix, which is that it is actually possible. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is possible for you to push new test results to a release. We think it's okay to allow you to do that until it's been approved. But once it's been signed off, it should not be possible to change the test results because that's part of what's being signed off. So that's a little thing that we're going to, we just got that feedback last week, actually, as somebody started testing this feature, and we're going to be changing that.
Great. Yep. Go to your next screen.
I'm trying to work out where my browser, where my slides are. Here we go. It's the full screen. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a bit about where we'd like to head with this. There's been some great suggestions in here already, but some part of our vision is some of the analysis that we can do when we've got that deep history of all of your test results. Is we're going to be able to tell you which of your scenarios are the slowest, which of your steps are the slowest. We're also going to be able to tell you which ones are unreliable. So if any of them seem to be flickering, they seem to be going on and off at random, we're going to be able to tell you things like that. Also, we're going to be able to, we want to, with this connection to source control, we want to allow people to not just necessarily give commenting feedback on scenarios, but actually be able to make changes to them, either kind of dragging them around and reorganizing them, which can be one of the things that you really want to be able to do with documentation as it grows and evolves. But also actually to change the wording, write new scenarios and suggest changes. Basically what we'd like is the same kind of experience as using Google Docs, but it's connected to source control and it's tested specification and it's structured as Gherkin rather than just being told free form text. But having that connection to source control is going to allow us to do that. The other thing about having that deep knowledge of your test results is that we believe it's going to be possible for us to use a kind of, and I hate to use the buzzword, but it is kind of machine learning to understand the connection between changes to source files and the test results, and to therefore be able to predict based on changes to source files which tests are most likely to fail. So if you are in the unfortunate situation of having a test run which takes into the hours, we know people, I've personally worked on a code base where we had a test run that got up to 15 hours at one point, that actually you're probably going to be able to get 95% confidence from running like 10% of your tests, because they're the 10% that are most likely to fail, right? Because the other 90% haven't failed in ages, have nothing to do with the changes that have just been made to the system. So we have a hypothesis there that we'd like to check out and try. We also think it's going to be great to be able to have real transparency about the pace that the team are able to add working features to the code base, right? So we have all this stuff about velocity metrics in teams, which is just kind of made up numbers basically. And a lot of politics can come in around estimation, but there's no substitute for counting the number of running tested scenarios, right? That's a real honest metric of the pace at which you're able to add value as a team, and it's the kind of feedback that can be useful for teams for planning their future and sort of what they're going to be able to produce. Also, we'd like to see integration with other tools like ALM tools. So we know our purpose here with this tool is to kind of reach out to the business analysts, the product owner community. We know a lot of those folks at the moment work in tools like Jira, and we'd really like to be able to provide tight integration so it's possible to at least see what are all the scenarios that are pertinent to a particular story while you're looking at the Jira ticket, maybe even be able to suggest or make changes to those scenarios from within the Jira tool as well, or your ALM tool of choice. Other ALM tools are of course available. So that's our vision. Shall I talk a bit about the opportunity, Steve, before we take any more questions, or do you think it's worth taking questions on the vision?
No, I think I've launched a poll on the vision. So
all right, good. So we can get some feedback that way. All right. So I want to talk a bit about how you can get involved. We are running, as I said, we're running pro on the SaaS, app.cucumber.pro. And really our kind of mechanism for working this thing is the appliances that they take a bit of investment. We have to help you get the machine set up. There's some support required. You're probably going to have quite a few users. So you need that thing to be stable and rock solid. So the way we're doing it is we're continuously deploying to the SaaS several times a day. We're constantly iterating on things on the SaaS, and that's our kind of experiment bed where we're iterating quite rapidly on things. And as soon as we've got a stable version of a feature, then we're cutting a version of the appliance and releasing it using this replicated tool, which I can answer some more questions about exactly how the appliance works. So we're making releases of the appliance probably, I don't know, somewhere around about 4 or 5 times a month. And as I said, we're making releases to the SaaS kind of daily. So that's how things work. The appliance is more stable. That's not to say the SaaS isn't usable, but we're making changes to it much more rapidly. And for that reason, right now, we're just allowing people to access the SaaS, and we're not charging anything at the moment. So you get private projects and an unlimited number of them. We're very much there to support you because we want to use the SaaS to get feedback. So there's a chat widget in the corner. You can chat with us anytime. And there's no kind of minimum number of users. So you can just sign up one person and play about with it if you want. The appliance, as I say, takes a bit more of an investment. So we're looking at doing 30-day evaluations when people want to come on. And we would like to try and find customers who have got a minimum of 50 users. And we're pricing it at $20 per user per month on a sort of annual contract. And with that, you're going to get basically a kind of account manager at our end. So there's going to be one person that you're going to deal with to get your support needs met as rapidly as possible. Support's a really big thing for us as we're trying to kind of develop this product. As you can see, it does a lot of cool stuff already, but we've got a lot of ideas about other things it can do. So it's really important to us that you're getting great support and we're able to kind of build that relationship and hear your feedback. So as far as next steps go, if this sounds interesting, you're going to get an email in a few minutes as the webinar finishes with a link to the SaaS to sign up if that's what you'd like to do, and some details about how the appliance installation works. And you can just reply to that email if you think you're ready to start an evaluation on the appliance, and the team will help you with the next steps. Are there any questions? That's the end of my demo. We've only left 5 minutes at the end for more chat, Steve. Is that all right?
I think so. I'd just like to pull Sal in for a second. Sal's going to.
Oh, is Sal here?
Yeah, Sal's going to ask a question that I think.
Hello, I've been lurking. I
can't see you. My window's
I know. I don't know why it said the host wouldn't let me share my video, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing today. Okay, so there was a great question from James Redhead that said, is there a risk that with this tool you'll discourage face-to-face collaboration, things like through Amigos sessions?
Oh, I do hope not. I really hope not. I mean, it's one of the reasons. What was this, James? Brilliant question. It's one of the reasons that so I don't know if you know about this, but we tried building Cucumber Pro back in 2013-14, and it started out as a real-time editor of feature files, a collaborative editor of feature files. And what we realized was that by kind of allowing anybody to write feature files, we were really falling into that trap of encouraging people to not collaborate, right? So one of the reasons that we started out with this mechanism of like just only allowing commenting and feedback in that way is that what we're hoping is that we're using the tool to sort of facilitate the kinds of conversation that can be difficult to have, either because people are working out of band, somebody's busy, they're not very available, or they're even in different time zones or different physical locations, because we know a lot of teams are in that kind of a situation. And in those cases, it can be helpful. Sometimes it can be helpful to like, we've had a talk, I've written my gherkin, we've written our gherkin, and then I need a bit of time to think about it and have a read and, and have a think, and people work in that way. But I really hope not. Yeah, I really hope not. We are all about meaningful collaboration. So this is hopefully allowing people to kind of augment what they would get from real face-to-face or at least video-based communication, real-time conversation. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Great question.
What do you think, though, James? Are we falling into a trap? I do hope not.
So, quick jump into something really technical. What are the compatible operating systems for the Pro appliance?
All right, good. So the link that you're going to get in your email is to this page, which is the appliance installation instructions. And in here, so we use a tool called Replicated as the platform that Cucumber Pro is installed on an appliance. And Replicate is basically a thing for versioning and pulling down Docker containers and hosting them. So Replicate is the thing that Cucumber Pro is kind of hosted inside on your server, and it allows you can basically get continuous delivery to your appliance if you want. So when we do a new release, it'll automatically download and update it. It's up to you kind of what level of that you want. You can either have that manual, or you can even have an air-gapped installation if that server's not allowed to be on the internet, so you can pull down the packages manually and put them onto the server. But Replicated have got their requirements, and they support most flavors of Linux. So if you follow the link through from our installation instructions,
down to the bottom,
there's a link there of the supported operating systems. So this is them here. So modern Debian, modern Ubuntu, Red Hat, CentOS.
The most important thing is the Docker engine support.
Yeah.
Great. So, well, thank you, Matt, and thank you, everybody, for attending. As Matt said, we're going to send you out an email shortly afterwards, after the end of the webinar. I'm sorry if we didn't get to answer your question, but we do have a community Slack channel. So if you're not already signed up to that,
we could send a link to that out as well by email. But what I'd also say about the questions is, when we send the email out, feel free to just reply with whatever questions you have. Absolutely, I'll be happy to answer any follow-up questions you've got that weren't answered by the webinar, as long as it's within the scope of what I know.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming and joining us. We'd love to hear what you thought about Cucumber Pro, and hear more about what you think of it. So thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, viewers. Thanks, Steve, for hosting. Thanks, Sal, for popping up with a question. Bye, everyone.